You want to take
Anything
us through
else?
the Kings here?
Yeah. I don't know. How did this turn into, we did the Atlantic Division in such like a swift pace. What the hell happened
All right,
here?
we'll do the Kings quickly. There's not
Uh,
that much here.
yeah. So the Kings, but they do have cap space if they want, though. So that's super fun. The Kings offseason vitals, key free agents, Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles, who they have early bird rights on, Alex Len, he of random playoff minutes, and Terrence Davis. Extension eligible candidates. De'Aaron Fox is actually extension eligible, but I don't think he's going to sign a 2-year extension, so that doesn't matter. Domas Sabonis, 4 years and 129.8 million. He would be eligible for it. We definitely should get into that, whether he would sign it. You offer it, would he sign it? Their cap situation, they get to 20 plus million in room if they renounce everybody, including Barnes. They also have, like, if you can find someone to take on Rashawn Holmes' money, one of the cap space teams, you can get to 30 plus million. And I think that would put you in some interesting conversations. They don't have any notable trade exceptions. Their biggest needs, wing defense, backup, front court depth. And so let's start here. Well, let's start with Sabonis. You offer that extension.
I think you do.
Does he take 4 and 130 if that's the number?
I think he should, or well, it's not should, because I think he probably can get more than that. I wouldn't pay him more than that, but I think he should reasonably believe that, because that's what we're at 4 for 130. You're at like 32 a year, 32 and a half.
I think that's, yeah. It's just because his max salary in that year is, so he's slated to be a free agent in 24, 25, like 42.9. And the max you could extend him at is about 29. That gap is so far away. But I'm kind of with you. Like 4 and 130 feels like the right, even maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's what he's thinking. Like, well, I could get 4 150. And if it's just that difference, okay, fine. You offer it though. Like if you're the Kings, you offer it. If he turns it down, you deal with it and figure it out over the summer.
Yeah, I agree. That is a trick. I mean, that's one that the new rules have made much more plausible than they used to be. Because
with 140% bump.
Because it used to be 120 and that never seemed like enough.
Now, do you anticipate them acting as a cap space team, or do you think it's more likely that they just bring back Harrison Barnes?
Well, so I hadn't thought about the Holmes component of this because for a while it did seem like it made more sense to bring back Harrison Barnes, unless you thought, and we'll just get into it early. Is an offer sheet for PJ Washington in the 20 million a year range? Like, is that enough? Is that worth it? Is he enough of an upgrade to justify that? I don't know. But if you can get to 30 by trading Holmes into someone's space with a pick, or I don't know who you'd attach young asset wise, they don't really have a lot of those that they would be willing to move, then it's interesting. Then I could imagine your suite of options gets a little broader. I guess probably, I think the more likely scenario is that Barnes is back, I think, as opposed to replacing him with someone younger that makes similar money. I don't know. What do you think? Because that's like a real pivotal issue for them this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't seem like the Blazers were content to just kind of fuck up their world and like fake build around Damian Lillard, whatever you want to call it now, I would be going for the $30 million route and trying to get Jeremy Grant, who's the perfect fit.
Do you think he's that much better than Barnes? Like he's
defensively, yes.
Better. Yeah.
Defensively, yes. I think without question. And so I mean, this is what I would do if I'm the Kings. And we should look, they'll have if they operate as over the cap, I think we start looking at, okay, well, who can they get for the mid-level? And so we want to go through targets quickly before I would map out what I would actually do with them. Just like, I'm not saying these guys would all need the full mid-level, but Bruce Brown on this team, I would full mid-level the shit out of him.
Yeah.
If that, like, Josh Richardson, maybe not a full mid-level guy, but he would make a bunch of sense. You could go the route of, I mean, like, there's not a lot of like bigger wings. Like Torrey Craig makes sense. Jay Crowder makes sense, but you're not going to full mid-level either of those guys. I did think about Dylan Brooks. Would they be a team that should look at Dylan Brooks? I don't know if I'd give him the full MLE, and you do have Davion Mitchell, who's already kind of shrinks the floor for you offensively. And Dylan Brooks is arguably more damaging because he's going to take more shots in all likelihood. But they're a team where, if you think you can trust the spacing, but Dylan Brooks, Sabonis, and Fox, maybe that gets a little iffy. I don't know.
That's the guy, I think. I hadn't
You
really and
I'm like on the fence, like that's the guy.
that's the guy. I am not, I think Dylan Brooks is certainly for the Grizzlies charitably was doing as much harm as good by the end there. But like this Kings team just does not have a 2 or a 3 or even a 4 that can guard anybody. And then Dylan Brooks checks all 3 of those boxes. So like if it's the full MLE, that's tough because the spacing is brutal with Sabonis and him. But man, like where are you getting a better value? Because he's one of the best defensive wings in the league, period. Where are you gonna get that for 12 million bucks? Like I just don't. And like Mitchell has value, but he does shrink the floor and he's really a one position defender. Like that's just not the same level. So if you move him or just he doesn't play anymore, that's probably okay. Man, I can't believe I'm all in on Dylan Brooks to the Kings.
I did not. I almost didn't even mention him. So I can't believe that you're all about him there. Yeah, I mean, if you went a little higher end, is this a team that makes sense? You already mentioned PJ Washington. That was a good one. Is this a team that makes sense for Kyle Kuzma? Like if you were going to drum up your cap space a little bit, would you prefer him over Barnes? I think I'd still want Grant. I think I'd want Grant over Kuzma and Barnes. Would you want Kuzma over Barnes?
Is the money equal? Because I think Kuzma expects
Kuzma,
much more.
I think the appeal of Barnes is that, what is he coming off a season which he made? What was he at? 22? What did he make last season? He made 18. Like you could probably get him for a similar number. Where I think that Jeremy Grant and Kuzma are both getting 20+ million.
What do you think about this? We're not talking full MLE, obviously, but what do you think about Matisse Thybulle? Like, just come in and guard people.
Yeah, I mean, and look, he was hitting threes in Portland after he got traded.
Isaiah, I'm just going lower end because like the MLE targets, it's
there. I don't know that there's. I think Bruce Brown, like, might be if we're looking at someone who can play the 2-3. I don't know that anyone aside from Bruce Brown, with regards to this team. I mean, Josh Hart, but he's going to get way more.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't feel like a real free agent to me, Josh Hart.
Yeah, and so like in terms of actual, like I don't know who would sign for, and then it's actually worth the full mid level. Bruce Brown is like the best player I keep coming up with, and I might just be selling him short. He might be more than a mid level guy. I did think I wouldn't give him the full mid level, but he's just young and the rim pressure he provides. Hamidou Diallo could be kind of interesting on this team. I prefer Dylan Brooks or Bruce Brown. I'll make that clear, but
I think. What do you think about Kelly Oubre? I think he probably expects more than the mid level. I would not pay him more than the mid level, but
that's just so like that's a little too offense for me. I would prefer to figure. I'd rather jump through the extra hoops to be like, let's go for Kyle Kuzma, who's not as going to give you as much defense as a Jeremy Grant, and Kuzma's probably become a little bit overrated defensively in that regard. But why are you giggling?
Because I've already given it away. Do you think the Pelicans are going to pick up Herb Jones's $1.8 million team option? He'd be a nice fit.
Yo, would actually be a nice fit, but the Pelicans are going to pick up his team option. Najee Marshall would work for this team too.
There you go. We got there.
My opinion of the Kings is that anything they do, I think they end up bringing back Harrison Barnes. They'll use their mid-level. And they might break it up on multiple players, by the way, the mid-level.
Yeah, we never think about it in those terms. That's always on the table.
Yuta Watanabe, I'm going to throw him. You put Nikhil Alexander-Walker everywhere. I put Watanabe everywhere. I think he would be a good fit for this team. Did I mention Torrey Craig, Javonte Green, Jalen McDaniels? Those are all guys. O'Shea Brissett, if you could count on him to make any threes, that'd be a really big deal. Well, not a really big deal, but it'd be a good flyer for this team. I didn't think about them. It doesn't make any sense. But I thought about Naz Reid for a minute. He'd be super fun, but he doesn't make sense for the Kings.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd go for that.
So I want to see them because, and it gets a little tricky because of their pick commitments. They owe a lotto protected pick to Atlanta, but they're good enough to where you can trust it conveying. And so if you're a team and they start putting, you could go this year's pick on the table in addition to other picks where so what do they have this year? They're at number 24 this year, and then they could trade 26, 28, and 30 in theory. They are an OG Anunoby team for me. They need to, I'm not saying they give up everything I just named. I think you could get in. Would you give up Keegan Murray for OG Anunoby? I think is an interesting discussion. They are a team where if you put OG Anunoby on them, I just feel like he completely like it's not, it doesn't, they just finished third in the West. So it's not like he reinvents them, but
No,
it
but
really just buoys their stock inside what should be, I think, a Western Conference that'll be a little bit more hellfire than it was this year, next year.
yeah, I mean, I said half jokingly Brooks is the guy, but like obviously OG is the guy like that because you're on a team that gets ridiculous shot creation from a center and has an all NBA point guard. So it's like Anunoby's biggest flaws is an inability to create his own shots efficiently and like pass. So not a problem. You just go
And like
guard.
ass. That's
You
great.
just go guard the best guy. Well, you know, if he can swing it around, but if he has to dribble and make a decision, it's just like it does not end well. Yeah, I mean, so how many picks? How many of those firsts are you giving up for? And
Well,
like, is it picks and Murray because they love Murray? Like that's
and then it's gonna probably cost you the 2 distant first and maybe this year's first for OG Anunoby. And you know what? I'm doing it.
yeah.
I mean, he's gonna be a free agent, which makes it so tough. It's
I
gonna
think you
cost you
just
at
pay
least
him.
2 firsts. I'm
Mhm.
doing it.
Yeah, because theoretically those first probably won't be that good. You know, if the Kings seem relatively stable, which is a wild thing to say in the wake of 20 plus years,
And
but
if you're Toronto, you're like, we just got, let's say it's 26 and 28 for Anunoby. Like Toronto might, they have to think about it, right? And then salary, which, well, that gets a little weird, but like Rashawn Holmes almost gets you there because he's close enough to Anunoby's number. So
that's right. And like Toronto must know that I mean, this cuts against the Kings wanting to do this too, because it's the same argument, but Toronto must know that this, we're looking down the barrel of free agency and this guy is going to get a ton of offers and we may just not want to spend that much. So better to get some assets now and we just don't have to deal with that.
I think he's the guy.
Yeah, I think he's the guy. I think you've cracked it because they're not getting Mikal Bridges, who's another guy you have listed here.
Yeah, I mean, that would be every pick and Keegan Murray. And I don't know that they would even say yes to that.
Right.
Would you do it if you're the Kings?
Like 3 firsts and Murray for Bridges.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think I do it. I don't think they do it because I think they believe in Murray.
I think the problem with that, is because we know one of those first round picks is 23, 24, whatever it was. That's whatever. So then you have to weigh those 2 future firsts plus Keegan Murray's just a lot.
Yeah.